I want to start with a question. Have you ever met someone who had all the talent in the world, but just couldn't make it work? Maybe you've seen them gifted, smart, full of potential, but somehow they never seemed to reach the level they could. And then you meet someone else, someone who isn't the most talented, the most connected, or the smartest in the room, but every day, without fail, they show up, they do the work, they stay consistent, and eventually they succeed. What's the difference? Disciplined success doesn't come from one moment of inspiration. It comes from doing the right thing again and again, even when no one is watching, even when it's boring, even when it's hard. Discipline is doing what you said you'd do long after the mood you set it in has left you. It's easy to set goals. It's harder to live by them. We live in a world that celebrates motivation, but motivation is temporary. Discipline is dependable. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man who wanted to run a marathon. He wasn't a runner, not even close. On his first run, he barely made it a mile before collapsing. He felt embarrassed, but the next day he got up and ran again, and again, and again. Each day just a little further, just a little stronger. Not because he felt like it. He did, but because he made a promise to himself. 6 months later, he finished the race. Not because of talent, because of discipline. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being committed. It's the ability to stay focused on the long game while everyone else chases short-term pleasure. And here's the truth. You will never feel like doing the hard work every day. You will not wake up excited every morning. There will be no applause, no cheering crowds. But if you keep going, you'll look back one day and realize that every small, quiet act of discipline built something extraordinary. Discipline builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. And that's where real success begins. When you trust yourself to show up no matter what. Most people begin their journey with a spark, an idea, a goal, a burst of motivation. That initial energy is powerful. It's what gets you started. Maybe it's the first day at the gym, the first chapter of a book, the first draft of a business plan. In those moments, you feel unstoppable. You're inspired, full of ambition, and convinced that this time things will be different. But the truth is that feeling doesn't last. Motivation is emotional, it's reactive. It rises and falls based on how we feel in a moment. You watch a video, read a quote, talk to someone inspiring, and for a moment you're ready to take on the world, but then life shows up. You wake up tired, things get hard, no one's cheering you on, the weather is bad, you're not in the mood, and just like that, the motivation fades. This is where most people quit. Not because they aren't capable, not because their goal wasn't worthy, but because they depended on a feeling to carry them through a process that requires something much more stable, that something is discipline. Discipline is the decision to keep going when the mood is gone. It's waking up early even when you didn't sleep well. It's writing the next page even when the last one didn't feel good. It's putting in the reps even when progress is slow. Discipline is about commitment. It's not exciting, it's not glamorous, but it's real, it's reliable, and it works. People often ask, how do I stay motivated? But that's the wrong question. The right question is, how do I stay consistent when I'm not motivated? That's what separates the amateurs from the professionals, the successful from the struggling. The difference isn't always talent or luck, it's the willingness to keep showing up. Motivation might get you started on Monday, but what about Thursday when you're tired? What about next week when no one's noticing your effort? What about next month when the results are slower than you hoped? That's where discipline matters most. Because discipline doesn't care how you feel, it only cares that you act. The beautiful part is this. The more you practice discipline, the more you begin to trust yourself. You no longer wait for the perfect mood or moment. You create it by doing the work. Over time, that builds confidence. It builds identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You become someone who follows through. Someone who finishes. There will always be moments when you don't feel like it. That's human. But discipline allows you to say, I'm going to do it anyway. And that mindset, doing it anyway, is what builds momentum. That momentum turns into habit, and those habits create the results that most people only dream about. Motivation is the match, it lights the fire, but discipline is the fuel that keeps it burning. So yes, get inspired. Feel the excitement. Let motivation wake you up. But don't depend on it to carry you. Instead, build a life where discipline leads. Because if you want real, lasting success, motivation is optional, discipline is essential. Every time you make a promise to yourself and keep it, you strengthen something far more valuable than just your to-do list. You strengthen your trust in yourself. And every time you break that promise, even in small ways, a little bit of that trust erodes. That's why discipline is not just about getting things done. It's about the relationship you have with yourself. Think about how you build trust with other people. It's not with one big gesture. It's with consistency. It's when someone shows up when they said they would. It's when their actions match their words. Over time, you come to rely on them, not because they're perfect, but because they're dependable. Now, apply that to yourself. If you constantly set goals but don't follow through, what are you teaching yourself? That your words don't mean much, that your intentions are temporary, that when things get difficult, it's okay to just quit. Over time, you stop believing your own promises. You stop setting real goals because deep down, you don't expect yourself to keep them. This is where discipline becomes life-changing. Discipline is how you rebuild that internal trust. It's how you prove to yourself day by day that your word means something. That when you say, I will wake up early, or I will finish what I started, you actually will, and it doesn't have to be grand. You don't need to run a marathon or write a book in a week. It can be simple, going for a walk when you said you would, drinking water instead of soda, putting your phone down when you're with family. These small choices matter. They're not just habits. They are agreements, contracts with yourself. And when you honor them, even in silence, you build integrity. This self-trust becomes the foundation for everything else, because when you trust yourself, you stop needing constant approval from others. You stop second-guessing every move. You stop waiting for permission to act. You move with a quiet confidence because you know you've done the work. You know that when things get hard, you won't fold. You've built a track record with yourself. And that's power. Without discipline, you end up in a constant state of negotiation with your own mind. Every decision becomes a debate. Should I go to the gym? Should I work today? Should I stick to my plan? But with discipline, those choices are already made. You don't waste time arguing with your feelings. You do what needs to be done because you've decided who you are. And that identity of someone who follows through, who honors their word, that identity sticks with you. It changes how you see yourself. And how others see you too. People start to notice your consistency. They trust you more. They rely on you. But most importantly, you rely on you. This kind of self-trust isn't built overnight. It's built through repetition, through action, through doing the right thing, especially when it's hard. It's built through self-discipline, not punishment, not perfection, but steady, intentional action. So the next time you're tempted to break a promise to yourself, pause. Ask yourself what that promise really means. Because it's not just about skipping a workout or pushing a task to tomorrow. It's about whether or not you want to trust the person in the mirror. When you build discipline, you're building more than a routine. You're building a bond with yourself. And that bond is where real confidence begins. We often look at successful people and admire their big achievements, the company they built, the transformation they went through, the book they published, or the career they've carved out. It's tempting to believe those outcomes were the result of some massive breakthrough, some sudden moment of clarity or opportunity that changed everything. But when you peel back the layers and study the process, you find something much simpler and far more powerful. Small acts done consistently over time. Success doesn't come from doing one thing right once. It comes from doing one thing a little better every day. Whether it's waking up early, reading for 10 minutes, practicing a skill, eating one healthy meal, or reaching out to one more person. These small actions, repeated daily, begin to stack. At first, it's hard to notice the change. The results are invisible. You feel like you're putting in effort with no reward, but that's the nature of growth. It's slow, it's quiet, it's almost unnoticeable, until it isn't. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't plant it and expect a tree the next day. You water it, you give it sunlight, you care for it even when there's no sign of life. Most people quit during this phase. They want results too fast. They give up because they can't see progress. But those who keep showing up, eventually the roots take hold. Growth begins underground where no one can see it, including you. Small acts also have a compounding effect. Much like compound interest in finance, where money grows faster over time, your habits, your consistent daily actions begin to multiply. One push-up becomes 10. 10 minutes of focus becomes an hour. One chapter becomes a finished book. The progress is small at first, but over weeks, months, and years, the change becomes dramatic. What once felt hard now feels normal. What once seemed impossible becomes part of who you are. This idea works both ways. Just as small positive actions compound, so do small negative ones. Skipping one workout, eating one unhealthy meal, or procrastinating for one day doesn't seem like a big deal, but when done repeatedly, it adds up. You don't fall off track in one giant step. It happens gradually, through tiny choices made daily. That's why small acts matter so much. They're either building you up or wearing you down. Another powerful thing about small daily actions is that they remove the pressure of perfection. You don't need to make huge changes overnight. You just need to commit to getting 1% better. It's not about being the best today. It's about being better than you were yesterday. That's a manageable, sustainable goal. It's realistic, and it works. The most successful people are not the most extreme. They're the most consistent. They've learned to master the mundane, to show up and do the work even when it's boring, even when they don't feel like it. And that's what makes them exceptional. They're not relying on occasional bursts of inspiration, they're relying on discipline and routine. So whatever your goal is, start small. Start with something so simple you can't fail. Write for 5 minutes. Walk for 10. Turn off your phone during dinner. These actions might seem insignificant in the moment, but they are shaping your future. Every step you take reinforces your identity. You become someone who follows through, someone who values growth, someone who is building something bigger than what others can see. In the end, it's not about doing everything all at once. It's about doing something small, intentional, and consistent every day. That's how big results are made. Discipline isn't just about productivity or achievement. At its core, discipline is a quiet, powerful form of self-respect. It's a way of telling yourself, I matter. My goals matter. My future is worth the effort. When you practice discipline, you're not just managing time or completing tasks, you're honoring your own value and potential. Think about the promises you make to other people. When you commit to showing up for a friend, meeting a deadline at work, or helping a loved one, you follow through because you respect them. You don't want to let them down. But how often do you break promises to yourself without a second thought? How often do you say you'll start tomorrow, eat better next week, or finally chase that dream, and then you don't? It's easy to brush it off because no one else is watching, but you are. And every time you don't follow through, you send a subtle message to yourself. What I want doesn't really matter. Over time, that message becomes internalized. You stop believing in your own words. Your self-esteem weakens, not because of external judgment, but because of your own inconsistency. Discipline changes that. It flips the narrative. When you wake up early because you said you would, when you work on your goals even when it's inconvenient, when you make healthy choices even when no one else would care, it's not just about the action, it's about who you become in the process. You become someone who keeps their word. Someone who values their own time, energy, and health. Someone who treats themselves with the same level of care and seriousness that they would offer to someone they deeply respect. That's the key. Discipline is a demonstration of self-worth. It's the willingness to delay immediate pleasure because your long-term well-being is more important. It's choosing growth over comfort, effort over ease, and purpose over impulse. Not because someone told you to, but because you've decided that your life is worth living with intention. Discipline also sets boundaries, not just with the outside world, but with your own impulses. It's easy to say yes to distractions, to short-term gratification, to what feels good in the moment. But discipline creates a line. It says, I won't trade what I want most for what I want right now. That kind of control isn't about suppression. It's about clarity. It's about knowing who you are and what you stand for. And the more you live this way, the better you feel, not because life becomes easier, often it doesn't, but because you start to like who you're becoming. You're no longer drifting, you're directing your life. You're no longer reacting, you're choosing. And every day that you choose discipline, you reinforce your own dignity. Now, of course, discipline isn't about perfection. There will be days you fall short, times when you don't show up how you wanted, but the point isn't to be flawless, it's to be committed, to stand back up when you fall, to return to your path not with shame, but with renewed intention. That too is an act of self-respect, or refusing to give up on yourself. So if you've ever struggled with motivation, if you've felt lost or unworthy, the answer isn't just to try harder. The answer is to start smaller, with one promise to yourself, and then keep it. Show yourself that your word has weight. Show yourself that you matter enough to act with discipline even when it's hard, because when you respect yourself, you take care of yourself. And discipline is how you do it. Discipline isn't loud, doesn't crave attention or recognition. It's not about being perfect or waiting for the right conditions. Discipline is simple, but not easy. It means showing up no matter what. On the days you feel great, and especially on the days you don't. On the days it's convenient, and on the days everything in you wants to quit. Anyone can show up when they're motivated, when the sun is shining, when the results are visible, when there's momentum and applause. It's easy. But that's not where growth happens. Growth happens in the quiet moments, in the early mornings when no one is watching, in the late nights when the work feels endless, in the uncomfortable, boring, thankless hours that most people skip. Discipline is what bridges the gap between wanting something and actually achieving it. It's the decision to act again and again, even when your feelings tell you otherwise, because feelings are inconsistent. Some days you feel energized, focused, inspired. Other days you feel tired, discouraged, or simply unmotivated. If you rely on feelings, your progress will always be unstable. But if you rely on discipline, you create consistency, and consistency is what creates results. There's a misconception that people who are disciplined always feel like doing the hard things, that they're wired differently. But the truth is, most disciplined people don't always feel like it. They just show up anyway. They've built the habit of not negotiating with themselves. The decision has already been made. They train, they write, they study, they build. Regardless of mood, regardless of circumstance. Showing up isn't just about doing the work. It's a message you send to yourself. I'm committed. I'm serious. I don't quit when it's hard. That kind of self-identity shapes everything. It builds internal strength, it builds resilience, and over time it builds confidence. Not the kind that's loud or showy, but the kind that's earned through action. Sometimes showing up means giving your best effort. Other times it just means not walking away. You may not perform at 100% every single day, but even a small step forward is still movement. What matters is that you didn't let the excuse win, that you chose to stay in the game. There will always be distractions, delays, and discomfort. Life will never offer a perfect stretch of clear skies and easy roads. Waiting for the ideal moment is just another form of procrastination. The truth is, every meaningful goal you have, whether it's building a career, improving your health, or developing a skill, requires you to show up long after the initial excitement fades. And sometimes just showing up is the victory. Not because the work was easy or fun, but because you honored your word. You stayed in alignment with who you said you wanted to be. You didn't let excuses become your story. That's where discipline lives, in the choice to be present, to take the next step, even when it's uncomfortable. You might not always see immediate results, but discipline isn't about instant gratification. It's about long-term impact. The days you showed up, even when you didn't want to, are the days that shape you the most. They're the ones that build the character and strength that others mistake for talent or luck. So keep showing up, not because it's easy, not because you always feel like it, but because the version of you that you're becoming is worth it. And because the simple act of showing up consistently, intentionally, and without excuse is how success is truly built. We all have something we want, something bigger than a paycheck, a title, or applause. Deep down, there's a reason we get out of bed in the morning, a purpose, a cause, a why. But wanting something deeply isn't enough. Life gets noisy, days get busy, distractions are everywhere. And without discipline, that deeper reason begins to fade into the background. You drift, you delay, you disconnect from what matters most. That's where discipline steps in. Not as restriction, but as alignment. Discipline is often misunderstood as rigid control or self-denial. But at its core, discipline is about making choices that serve your purpose. It's about acting in alignment with the life you say you want to live. When you're disciplined, you're not just doing hard things for the sake of doing them. You're doing them because they lead you closer to your why. It's not about punishment. It's about staying connected to your mission. When you know your why you're pursuing a goal, why you want to grow, why you want to become better, discipline becomes less of a burden and more of a tool. You stop asking, do I feel like it today? And start asking, does this move me closer to the life I want? That shift in mindset is everything. Because feelings fluctuate, but your purpose can stay solid. There will be days when motivation disappears. You'll feel tired, uninspired, maybe even lost. But your why doesn't vanish. It just gets harder to hear. Discipline is how you turn the volume back up. It's how you remind yourself that what you're doing matters, even when the work feels dull or the progress feels slow. Every time you act with discipline, when you make the hard choice, stay consistent, say no to shortcuts. You're not just building habits, you're reinforcing your values. You're proving to yourself that your mission matters more than your mood.